just for a second, take yourself back in time to your childhood, specifically when you were at school. And I'm going to ask you one very, very simple question. I want to see what thoughts come to mind straight away for you. Who was your favourite teacher and why? As you might have found from other videos on this playlist, a lot of what we're talking about are the values and the traits and the characteristics. But what we're looking at in today's video is understanding the person that was standing in front of you and also who you were in relation to that person as well. That's why today's book recommendation is The Courage to Teach by Parker Palmer. I've got this lovely hardback cover, so there's not much to show you in this way, but hopefully that turns up, The Courage to Teach. What we're trying to focus on is going to be very much based on just a very, very early quote in the book, actually. It's around page 10. And this applies to way more professions and people in general than just teaching. And you'll see why when I describe this quote now. So on page 10, this book builds on a simple premise. Good teaching cannot be reduced down to technique. Good teaching comes from identity and the integrity of the teacher. And that is so important. I've spent 10 years of my life as a teacher and not once has anybody recommended this book to me. And this should be the number one read that all teachers read as they get into the profession, because that is the main issue in education, in my opinion, at this point in time. It's reducing down teaching and education in the widest possible sense down to technique. And that's what's happening more and more in the world as we start to look at this across other careers and other forms of identity. It's not about necessarily, let's say we'll take parenting as an example. It's not about just this idea of who are you as the father or who are you as the mother. A lot of the books, understandably, it's not to completely discredit the entire thing, but it focuses much more on the technique of being a parent, which is a very mechanical way of looking at this. It's looking at a more of a transactional idea compared to who you are as you show up for your child. In the sake of this book, it's not all about the PowerPoints that you're using or the techniques in that sense. It's not even about the behavior management. It's nothing about that. It's who you are at the front of the room. And that can't be faked. You've got to have a true, deep sense of identity and integrity to show up in the world, to be able to make the genuine transformational difference that ideally you'll want to be making as a teacher. Hopefully in the same way, if you're listening to this as a parent at this point in time, to be able to have the biggest impact on your child, it's not about you being technically the best parent, having read a lot of different books. It's about understanding who you are, how you occupy that space, how you show up, and what kind of attention that you pay to your child. As we're doing this, perfect timing, my cat has appeared crying, so we'll see how well this video goes. But just to take this a little bit further, to make it a bit more relevant to you, because we talked earlier about this idea of a mentor earlier in this series. What I'd like to focus on is when we consider this teaching relationship, not so much the teacher at the front of the room, but who you are in relation to that teacher as a student. Because you can give yourself a lot of credit, and a lot of people now seem to be dying just for this basic attention, this basic compliment which is not given, because it's just constantly being reduced down to feedback and optimization and a very mechanical way of living rather than just showing appreciation. So I want to be able to take this opportunity just to give you a bit of appreciation, and also so that you can learn how to give yourself a bit of appreciation as well. So on page 21, this is the key part that I want everybody to be able to get from this book. Then I asked the question that opens to the deeper purpose of the exercise that he's described previously. It's not what made your mentor great, but what was it about you that allowed great mentoring to happen? Mentoring is a mutuality that requires more than just meeting the right teacher. The teacher must meet the right student. And in this encounter, not only are the qualities of the mentor revealed, but the qualities of the student are drawn out in a way that is equally revealing. It's just so beautifully worded, and it changes this entire question. It's not about how amazing this person is at the front of the room, because they've already looked at themselves in terms of identity and integrity. That's important, but that's something that you're not in control of as the student. how this person lives their life. What is important for you and what is actually in your control is how you show up to a space like that. That's why I love that question. Not what made your mentor great, but what was it about you that allowed great mentoring to happen? It's not is it that what makes you great as a parent, it's what is it that is allowing you to be a great parent. To take into account the bigger context, the bigger circumstances with all of this. Because as I've said in multiple videos on this series, we could easily look at this in a very abstract, logical way and just think, if I did all these techniques and this checklist, then that would automatically make me a great person in this area. And it's just not true. In a very shallow, superficial way, it is, because you'll on the appearance of it, on the surface of it, that's what you'll be doing. But it's got to have deep resonance. It's got to hit at a much deeper level, because that is what's going to be brought out in that other person. If you imagine, like, let's say I was playing music at this point in time and I tuned my guitar properly and the other person had tuned their guitar properly. If I pluck the E string and that both guitars are in tune, automatically that's going to resonate in that other person's guitar. Their E string will also start to vibrate. And it's because they're in resonance with each other. Me plucking that will draw out that note in that other person or in that other guitar. It won't suddenly start playing an A and a D and a G and any other note. It won't do anything like that. It'll only resonate to that E string, that frequency which is being matched. And that's what all of this is about in the Courage to Teach. It's understanding, yes, that the person in front of you is important. That identity and that integrity of that person is important. But what is actually important on a deeper level and more relevant for you is who you are in relation to that person. And hopefully, as in the case with a lot of this, the work that I'm doing on this YouTube channel and with a lot of other great teachers that I'm seeing online, is that they're showing up in that space which is authentic, it's truly themselves. And that allows other people to be themselves as well. It's not about me saying, I've read all these books, here's exactly the perfect situation with it all. It's not me writing out scripts and reading them all out so it's all perfect. That's not about that. It's about me understanding, how has this shaped me? How can this help you if I talk about my experiences? And if you go and read these books, it's about how you can then help yourself and shape yourself. This is like a one form of the mentoring relationship. As you're watching this, don't focus on me, focus on you. We're already 6-7 minutes into a video like this. There's a certain type of person that is watching this video at this particular point. You might be patient, you might be courageous, you might be curious, you might be seeking or yearning for a change. You might be looking for guidance and direction. But be aware of the fact that that is what's going on for you at that point in time. I might be an example at this point about what that looks like on your journey, but it's not about me. This is about you and your process and you and your transformation. When I think about all these books that I'm reading, I'm having all these amazing conversations with all these amazing theorists, whether they're psychologists or they're philosophers, whatever else it might be. I'm showing up to these books in a way that does it justice so that I learn more about myself. And I want that for you. I want to be able to recommend a lot of these because I know how much they've helped me. And if they're able to help me, I'm not this unique person. There's something about me which is going to resonate in a few other people. And if you're one of those people that resonates, probably these books are going to make a big difference for you as well. I'm not here to tell you what you should take from them. I'm here to say there's going to be something in here which you could really gain from. And I'd love to be able to know what it is that you do gain from these as well. I'm not here to inform you of your opinions. I'm here to help you form your own opinions. That'll be something which I will focus on in another book in this series. But like I say, there's so much in terms of how much I could talk about in a book like this. But I want to keep it just short and as simple and straight to the point as I can, because being a teacher requires courage. You've got to show up fully as yourself. And as anybody might know who's either in teaching or has experienced teachers like this, you can see through who's putting on a performance. And students are merciless. They will poke holes in that performance. So you've got to have a strong sense of self, a strong sense of understanding of yourself, and this integrity as well. That includes owning up to your mistakes when you make them, but it also includes putting a plan in place so that you can correct those mistakes. You can swap out the word teach or teacher for anything. Anything that's relevant for your career. It could be relevant for friendships. It could be relevant for parenting. It could be relevant for relationships. Just what is the courage that you're going to need to be able to show up? Because that's what all this is about. It's not about technique. It's about identity and it's about integrity. So please take that into account as you read a book like this, The Courage to Teach by Parker Palmer.